Right. Thank you, Dana. Thank you so much for hosting this, Dana. I really, really appreciate it. But how do I get my slides going?
The slides are on.
Yeah, but they're not moving when I want them to. There we
Use
go.
your arrow.
Got it. Okay. Do you remember this place, everyone? Hey, yes. Okay. Well, it doesn't move.
It's the same thing as a clicker. You use the side arrows.
I'm doing
write
it.
some T in there.
No, it's not moving.
It was moving earlier. Don't you move? Okay. Don't know what you did between now and then, but there you go. Keep your arrow on the building.
All right.
And right, left.
All right. So as we know, we are working our way through the doorways into the I dimension. The doorways are really the passages through which we really enter a deeper experience of the world and ourselves. And what I want to do is to just spend a few minutes on the deep learning process before we go into doorways. Before we really can penetrate into these mysteries, we require several, I would say, processes, or need to have it instilled in ourselves that it becomes an almost automatic process before we drop into the deep learning. And I'm going to check in just now to find out from everyone, what you understand by these terms, deep learning process, because I really want this to be a little bit more interactive than last time, but also because, some of these words are a language that we need to kind of understand together so that we're all on the same page when it comes to a word like deep learning. So we'll get there. But what I want to just begin with is there are 4 deep learning processes that we need to really familiarize ourselves with, not just intellectually, but really through practice and doing it. Because I can only encourage you to do this, because it then becomes a enhancement of all your learning, whatever you do. And so there are these 4 processes. I put them in a certain order. There's the ethical process, which we know a lot about. We've gone through it in many situations in the first level, and it'll be continuously with us. It's about when you are going into learning whatever, you must feel safe. You must trust. You must be in your I and in your partnership, and there has to be a freedom. So these are basic background entities that we have to live with in our everyday life, really. But this is what we're striving for. And then there's the attention process. So the attention process is the following. Let's just experience it, us together. As you're sitting, listening and watching, I just ask you to connect your attention to your body. Okay, body scan is very well known, but we're going to do this in such a way that you actually connect to 3 spheres, okay, or 4 spheres. You're going to direct your attention consciously to your head region and scan the whole head region. You're going to check out what's going on there. And then you're going to go down into your chest region, okay? You're going into that region we call the rhythmic system, the chest region. And then you drop down into your abdominal area, okay? And that's another whole experience in the body. It's a very different experience, head, chest, and abdomen. And then you can go down into your limbs. And the ability to be able to go into the body in this kind of way is highly valuable to everything that follows. And this is just a body scan. Then we go into a soul scan, We can scan the soul. How? By our gateways. So we have the thinking gateway. We can go into the feeling gateway down in the chest. We can feel sensory awareness in the body, a general body awareness, and then we can go into willing and expressing down into our limbs. So this is connecting to the soul. And then we connect to the spirit by just being conscious of who is aware as a witness, as one who's guiding a process, who's making a wish. So there's a threefold attention process where we connect with the body, the psyche, the soul, and the spirit. And then we come to the soul attitudinal process. I've changed this. I used to call it the preparation process, but all four are preparation processes. I'm calling it an attitudinal process. What does this mean? First of all, it means when we confront any learning, we want to have the will to know, curiosity and interest. And then we want to be open. And the openness is emptying your mind, opening your heart, and expanding your body. That's an expansion on the opening that we talked about in module 4. So we go from wanting to know to opening and expanding and emptying the mind, which is the thinking. And then we can drop into reverence and wonder. And then we drop into the I presence. And then we're ready to participate and engage. And now comes the awareness process, which we know right from the beginning. The awareness process is the dropping down. It's using attention process with the gateways very consciously. And we're going and taking the idea. So now we're into the deep learning process. We're taking an idea, whatever it might be. Let's say we want to understand more about threefoldness. We place it in our mind as a thought. We then create a picture, visualizing it. So we bring it from thinking into picturing. It's still somewhere up in my head. So the focus of attention is thinking, which is always head connected. And then you picture it. I picture it somewhere behind my eyes as a picture. And then I drop it down into feeling. I drop it down into my chest area. And we know this relationship between the regions and the awarenesses. We drop it into feeling. So the picture goes into a feeling. I'm feeling whatever it is, the threefoldness, in whatever way I can feel. I open my heart to it. And then I drop it down into my belly. You remember in the body awareness, we drop sensory awareness down into the body. And then we can take it into the will. And we can direct that picture, that thought, that picture, that feeling, that sensation into the body wherever we want it to go. And I can say the last few days I've had to deal with a certain kind of health issue, and it has been so valuable in being able to take the idea, let's say, of healing using light, warmth, and bringing it into a picture, bringing it down into the feeling, down into the belly as a sensation, and then bringing it straight to that place that needs support and help. This is an extremely powerful therapeutic process. And it's connected with these 4 deep learning processes. So I wanted to stop there and just have a little interaction and hear how you hear this, what is unclear, and what needs maybe some clarification.
Feel free to unmute yourself and throw out. It's not a big group, a question. Again, sensory body stuff that's heady because it's words. We really want to make sure we're feeling it. Anyone want to paraphrase what they just heard? That's also super helpful to get it into our terms.
You're so good at that, Dana.
Yeah, but I'm driving a Zoom right now.
Does everyone understand first the term deep learning, what that means? Do you, Dana?
Well, I mean, it's something in technology. I know about it.
Yeah.
So clearly, you've now taken a technology term and used it into psychology. So,
It's like many things, you know, the participatory medicine is a technical term, but it's the way we practice it and the way the doctors who belong to the Society of Participatory Medicine practice is completely different.
well, what's deep learning mean to you, Rob? Just in lay terms, not reading numbers.
Deep learning is very interactive and experiential. It's immersing oneself with one's whole person, as we've trying to portray the whole human being.
Body, it's spirit, it's soul, it's basically
in the learning process.
Participatory learning.
Exactly.
It's deep learning, and you're just throwing new words into things to just. That's my brain.
Yeah, deep
Cool.
learning, participatory learning. It's, yeah, there's similar words with different nuances, but I'm finding that a useful
question. Gail, did you have a question?
It's not really a question, but it's just something that struck me when we're talking about deep learning. One of the things you said, Raul, is that we need to empty our mind. And I find that so refreshing.
Yeah.
An element of deep learning is emptying our mind. That feels pretty big to me.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I think it is. And if we were only to do that and nothing else, we would be dropping into a deeper way of understanding things. But now
Because
consider,
you're sensing it, because
well, you're opening your whole being to the inflow of information that is always there that we don't receive because we separate it through our thinking. We cut it off. We think we know everything, so we just cut it off. But how would it be, Gail, as well as emptying your mind, you open your heart? Do you think that's do you think that's similar to emptying your mind, opening your heart?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Opening my heart and being fully open and receptive in my entire being.
Yeah, exactly. And then I'm adding this extra, expanding your body. In other words, expand your body so that it almost fills the universe, and then you'll know the universe. It'll be in you. There's something in that process as well.
So it's a level of receiving.
Yeah, it's expansion on all levels. Head, chest, or heart region, and then body. And we're going to come and see, you know, as we get more and more involved in the threefoldness, you'll see that there are different laws that pertain to each area. And if we understand these laws, we'll be able to direct our attention exactly where we want it to go. Because the head can do certain things, the chest or the heart, the feelings can do other things, the sensory awareness, the will can do other things. Yeah.
So just for my sake, your 4 deep learning processes is an ethical process, then there's paying attention, then soul attitudinal process, really complex little term there. It's just basically having the right attitude. And so when you come into a healing environment, there's a safety. Like we don't talk when we're witnessing a process. It's truly being connected to all of us, my sensory, my thinking, my feeling, being when I'm there.
Mm.
Then there's basically being there with the correct intention, the right attitude, as you say, and then basically being open to having an awareness process.
Well, our awareness process is dropping from
Into-
thinking down to picturing,
Okay.
down to feeling, sensing, and doing.
So is there an exercise you want us all to do
Yeah.
right now before we move on to practice this?
Well, take an object. We've done this before, but anything you have on your desk, on your table, and just observe the pen I've got in my hand, and I can say this is a pen. You make a thought about it. So you can have whatever thoughts you want. I wish to understand more about this pen. Where does it come from, etc. That's the thinking. I'm in my head, right here. That's where I experience the thought. Now I close my eyes and I visualize this pen. I've taken that object into my mind and I'm picturing it. So can you picture it as the object? And then you drop this down into your feelings. So what is the feeling of a pen like?
What do you mean by feeling?
So I'm taking that picture, I've got that picture in my mind, and I'm now wanting to feel into it. I want to use my feeling. What's the feeling say about the pen? Am I comfortable with it? Do I like it? Does it give me any joy just to picture it? So I'm in feeling.
So I'm afraid
sympathy.
because it's a fork and I'm afraid that the fork's going to poke my innards.
Okay,
Is
so
that
there's
feeling?
exactly. So the feeling is evoked about that picture that's in your mind. Now you can take that further into the body. What does the body sense when you take this fork down into your belly region?
Hungry.
Okay. Now there's suddenly an experience of sensory awareness in your belly, and now it says, I'm hungry, and now what do you want to do with that?
I want to put my fork in the cauliflower in the bowl in front of me.
Okay, and there it is. So that's the awareness process, going from thinking to visualizing, to feeling, to sensing, and to doing. And in this way, we get to know this object extremely well. What we've done, and this is a very magical, this is almost, I would say, not almost, it is alchemy. It is alchemy, because you're taking an outside object and you're converting it into a soul process. And you spiritually are guiding this down into the body and making use of an outer object to effect something in your life. It has an action. You participate with that object, my pen, right down into my limbs. And I've taken something worldly, outer, and it's become inner.
So I just did that with my scarf, which is a little more practical. I looked at it because I'm chilly, closed my eyes, can see it, feel what it is, and then sensorially, I kind of wrapped it around me and felt held and contained by something healing. And then I actually did do it. And so you're saying that's an alchemical process?
Yeah, because notice what happens inside.
I felt warmer.
Ah, there we go. So from an object outside, which has it has only a portion of its gift to you as it comes to you as a sense impression. We have to create the rest. And we do this through this awareness process.
Yes.
Do you get it?
Prasanna, are you unmuting yourself?
I am. Hey guys.
Hello.
Hello. I wanted to say two things. The first thing is what I understood about the deep learning is it's about, for me, it sounds like it's starting with beginner's mind, kind of going all open and wanting to learn, kind of almost removing anything else that we've learned before so we can start fresh. That was useful, but I'm still, the thing about the awareness process, Donna, as you just described it, and Raoul, as you just did, I'm not entirely sure why we're breaking it down this way, because it seems to me that it's something that we all do effortlessly, automatically anyway. So is it just, are we going through it just to bring it to consciousness, or, yeah, I'm not entirely sure what.
So,
The point of this
so,
practice.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
great that you asked that question. Fazana, let me ask you, when you see an object consciously, do you actually acknowledge that you're making a mental picture of it? Consciously acknowledge that you're feeling it, and consciously bring it down into sensory awareness and then into action. Do you consciously do that?
Well, that's my question, that we do it automatically. So is this whole process really just about bringing it to consciousness? So is this really more a mindful process, just bringing everything
Where are we
to
going?
consciousness?
I think you make a wonderful point here. I would say consciousness is everything, Fazana. Because if we're not conscious, we are at the level of, let's say, non-thinking people or non-thinking beings like animals. We just react and move around without knowing why and what we're doing. And the very difference between being unaware and aware is really being superhuman, or being human in the true sense of the word. And I think this is very important. Everything we're doing is automatically, this is why I say the path learning process and the path method is unconsciously done by everyone. I might as well not teach it, because everyone practices it anyway, unconsciously.
What's the point of consciousness?
The point of consciousness is that we wake up to what is actually going on unconsciously all the time.
So this is just a practice that we're doing in order to be conscious of what goes on inside of ourselves. So when we have reactivity or we're out and about in the world, we actually are able to be conscious of what our reactions are. Is that what
That's
you're
right.
getting to?
When we're conscious, we can choose, we can guide, we can inform, we can bring our patients to awareness. This little awareness process, I am going to institute into my practice from tomorrow as a highly powerful, conscious way of people healing themselves, only because they're conscious. Because unconscious, it doesn't work, not the same way.
So the purpose of us basically parsing out these 4 categorizations is a practice in our mind to become more conscious about how we go about the world. And I think, Fazana, there's a reason for this that will unveil itself as to why, you know, when you learn, I think I've mentioned this, a dance move or a martial arts, you don't do the full move all at once, you just do the, and that's to get flow.
Yeah. Thank you.
Fazana, are you comfortable with that answer, or are you, what do you think?
So I think I was asking what the point was of breaking it down, because it feels like we did it automatically, but you have answered me in that I wondered if the point was just to be mindful and to be more conscious, to be consciously conscious. And I think that's exactly what you said, that
Do you think that is important for your work, if you were conscious of these steps that are normally unconscious?
So I think it's very important to be conscious and present. And so I suspect most of us do that anyway in this kind of work. So I think probably a lot of us have put a lot of work into being incredibly conscious and responding instead of reacting. So, so now this is just for me like a way to categorize it, to kind of break it down, to kind of see it in all its different steps. But I think for many of us, that process has already become automatic. So we probably do all of this anyway. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, I'm sure we do. That's the whole point. We are here to make it conscious, and for us to wake up to what is actually going on, so that we can we can be able to steer the process the way we wish it to go. Otherwise, it just goes its own way, and then we have to live with the outcomes. Yeah. To me, and I hear what you're saying. Of course, we are all trying to be conscious, and what we're trying to do here is advance that as, you know, another step forward, or another deeper level downwards and upwards. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Sure.
Anything else around this particular? Angie, is that your finger?
Alison?
Alison, sorry.
Yeah. I think for me, this process about deep learning is pivotal. It's not just a degree of consciousness. It results in a different outcome.
Right.
Sort of general shift from autopilot to consciousness, responsiveness, reactivity to responsiveness is an entry point, but that process, when it falls down into your body, when I experienced that in the group, the outcome was way further away from the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
So I think what I'm trying to say, and the other thing for me is I tend to take too many thoughts on board, too much learning. And with this process, it prevents that. It enables that expansion focus, and
Right.
boils it down to a deep learning. Yeah, so for me, consciousness is just the entry point.
Get it. Yeah. Thank you for that. I think that's wise statements. I see
Next.
Natalie.
Did you have something you wanted to say?
Hello.
Yeah, hi. Hello. Sorry, my voice is a bit hoarse because I've been sick.
Oh dear.
But I feel like for me that I without this process, I would maybe skip, like I could go straight into feeling or straight into sensing it with my body, and not knowing where I started and where I'm going. So it's been very helpful for me to sort of unpack things, whether it's something I'm observing, whether it's me dealing with my children, or something that's happening to me, and then I can use it to sort of open it up and unfold it and see, okay, so you had this thought, and then, or, you know, you're having your body's doing this. Let's unfold this, let's unpack it. So in that sense, I feel that's where the consciousness comes in for me.
Right.
Even with my son, like I'm able now to go through the process within myself for him. Like, what is this? He's doing this behavior. And then I feel like I can go either do it with him or with myself and see where it started. It started with the thought, or, he had this reaction, and, I can stretch it out and see it for what it is.
Beautiful. Yeah, as you speak, it just strikes me that the process, you may enter the process, let's say in your feeling, because that's often where we experience things. And then you can stop there and you say, okay, let me bring it up into my thinking, or into what does my feeling actually look like as a picture? And then you bring it into consciousness, going the other way. So I'm hearing that's another way in which we can use this process, just being conscious of where we are, where we land in our everyday experience. I think also the other thing is to become so versatile that one can go quickly to where one wishes. So one can drop down, at will with conscious guidance. It's taking your spiritual leverage and saying, hey, I want to go down now into my body. No, I think it would be better that I go into my thinking. No, I want to be in my picturing. How would it be if I just let my will? So you learn to become like this juggler or this puppeteer that can actually go where you choose and use your gateway awareness as your thinking, your sensory feeling and will to open up the experience for you. Yeah. All right.
You've got slides.
Any other questions?
I think we're good to move on.
So,
Share.
there we go.
Do you want to share this? What you've got
I think I am
It's
sharing it
not
now.
shared.
Not?
So I'm not sure what you did. You didn't go to the Zoom, you just went to the PowerPoint. So you have
Okay.
to go to share, like at every time we do
Each
it.
time it
And
goes
then,
back.
well, that's the way you do it.
Thank you, Dana. Okay. So,
And I don't know, let's just do it for you.
Okay, and then you just do this. Oh, no, that's not what I wanted to do. Sorry, guys.
sure.
Stop, just, wow, well done. I had it set up.
Slideshow.
Oh, wow, okay, so then why can't, no, you need to play from the current slide.
All right, there we go. All right, so a lot of the module was on the threefold and fourfold universal principles. Another feature of the participatory deep learning process is that it focuses on these universal principles. They are, you can almost say, the powers behind the phenomena. So the phenomena of life reveal themselves in countless millions of forms that we would never be able to get our heads around. We desperately try to know everything about the phenomena. However, when we understand the forces, the principles living behind these phenomena, we have a lever on all the phenomena. And these principles are not arbitrary. So it's not as if someone just worked it out, like at a certain point in the history of medicine, people suddenly decided, there are these separate organs, and then there are these separate cells, and each cell has all these separate little parts to it. And the human beings who just made everything smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller until you couldn't actually see it anymore, even in a microscope, even in an electron microscope, and it disappeared from your sensory awareness. Amazing. Then it was left up to hypotheses and assumptions and kind of theories as to what was behind that. So we had the whole theory of energy, and we had the theory of quantum physics. But it's so far removed from the sensory experience, it's all a conception. It may be right, it may be not right. No one can be sure. All we can do is measure the effects of these theories, not the actual causative factor. But that's another question, and one can go into the philosophy of that. The point I want to make is somewhere beyond human conceptuality, there is a universal conceptuality, you can almost say. It's like you can discover this threefold, fourfold principle in so many different spheres of both the sensory world and the supersensory world. And that has changed when I discovered this, the threefoldness. It just changed entirely my way of diagnosing and prescribing. Although I never forgot, of course, that, you know, there is this descriptive anatomy and descriptive pathology and descriptive therapy. We're told that when you see a sum of symptoms, that it belongs to a diagnosis called pneumonia. Okay, and we put these things together and we call it pneumonia. Very different if I say that pneumonia is caused because there's too much fluid coming up into the lungs and too much life activity in the lungs, and it's too cold in the lungs, and that's why there's sickness in the lungs, especially because that person is going through a very difficult, stressful time where his feelings are being compromised. Of course, I always call it pneumonia, but at the same time, I'm going to diagnose that there's a weakness in his chest region, an overwhelming metabolic process up in the lungs, and a weakness on the neurosensory level because it can't hold the power of the metabolism, where there's all this fluid and blood and bacteria and energy and will, which is driving up into the lungs. So one starts to look at phenomena like pathology and diagnosing it in a totally different way, because it allows me then to say, okay, I'll fix that. Not by giving an antibiotic, because that's useless. I mean, it gets rid of the bacteria, but it does nothing about the overwhelming metabolism. And where is that coming from? Because the person's being too busy, has been overriding and exhausting his nervous system. And so I develop a therapeutic, rational approach based on my diagnosis. And so what I'll do is I will bring the fluids back into the body by supporting the liver, giving certain remedies to balance it out, strengthening the central chest area, the lungs with certain remedies, and so on and so on, bringing warmth into certain areas, using anti-stress processes, etc., etc. I don't want to go into all the details of this. We will, in forthcoming modules, be going right into pathology and diagnosis. I just want to indicate that threefoldness and getting to know it as a universal principle behind the phenomena is an extremely helpful, valuable asset to understanding life. It's especially important for the physical bodily processes of existence of the human body and the world body. Whereas the fourfold is especially valuable in understanding the life forces, the prana, the chi, the etheric body. And so if we're looking at let me see if I've got it here. There's the threefold human. spirit, soul, and body, well, that's just fundamental as a whole constitutional categorization, if you will. The body broken down into its head, chest, and torso limbs. The threefold bodily systems, neurosensory, rhythmic, and metabolic limb system. These three follow that threefoldness that one starts to sense as a power of forces and so on. We've seen these before, the threefold head with its three sections, the threefold arm. Here, I wanted to get to this slide. And this links us to the fourfold principles. And as you saw before, we had physical body, psyche, or soul, and spirit as the threefoldness. But the moment you bring in the question of life, you have to add another body. You have to bring in the life body. That's where the etheric body comes in. And a knowledge of the etheric body, the knowledge of the life principle, is again such an important development for deep learning of this kind, because without that, one really can't understand so much of what goes on in the human health or ill health or healing processes. So we're going to get to know more and more about this life body, what it is, how it is differentiated, how it is organized. All of us therapists, people who've gone into health and healing, what have we learned? We've learned so much about the physical body, right? Fazana, that's what we learned at medical school. All about the structure and the form of the physical body. We did learn something called physiology, but it never taught us what was behind the biophysiology. What is the life energy? I don't want to use this word energy. It's a really awful word. That I would rather call forces. The forces behind the living processes. I'd never heard a word about that because science had no answers for it. And what we're talking about here is a science of life forces, the etheric body. So I want to maybe just stop there and just get a few questions and comments before we go into a little bit more detail about that. So let me unshare. Stop share. Why did it go off? It's all right, I got it. There we go. Hello.
So
Gail?
that's not really the way it is. Okay, so you'd go to that and then you get to see everybody.
Oh, thank you. That's wonderful. Hey.
So etheric life forces. Does everybody have an idea what etheric life force means? And if so, ones want to throw it out. Nikki? No, I saw your finger like that.
I think Gail has got something to say.
Which one?
Gail with
Afraid
a
not,
one.
Doc. I'm feeling a little bit perplexed by it.
Great, please, please. That's what I like to hear. Confusion and
so-
perplexion. Helps
So I
us all.
understand what you're saying about the difference between the threefold and the fourfold is introducing the life body. I'm still grappling as to how to contextualize that, what that actually means. How to
Okay,
compare to threefold.
so, okay, so threefold speaks about the body, but inherent in the body, if we were to break it down, we have to separate that which is like mineral, chemical, physical, like the elements of the mineral kingdom, and then something else that gives it a living quality. So the skin, if you look at your hand, it's not just a hand of a corpse. There are hundreds of living processes going on in this hand every moment. I can feel it's warm. It perspires. I can have sensation there. That is awareness. But within, there is countless life processes. There's circulation, there's respiration, there is nutrition, there is warmth, there's healing, there's growth, metabolism is composed of a number. There's excretion and secretion. These are processes that enable this hand to be alive. Okay, and what is the quality of that? Now, it doesn't come from the mineral world. The mineral world is dead. So where does it come from? What is it that actually makes this hand alive? What is it that makes the plant alive? The plant has all these processes like the human body. So we have to start to think of an organized system of life processes, okay? Now we can't see it. We can see the physical hand, right? But if you were clairvoyant, you would see around this hand a shimmering aura of light, and it would be warm, and it would be in motion. It would be even sounding if you were fine enough to hear it. It would have all the qualities that we're going to talk about, but we can only refer to them in words and in experiences. We can't see it yet. But it's an organized system of life forces which underpins every physical part of the body all the time until you die.
Is that etheric?
And that Steiner called the etheric formative forces, because they form giving. They allow the hand to be a hand, because otherwise it would collapse. I mean, what happens with a corpse? It just disintegrates and becomes chemical substances. But because there's life in it, we have a certain form that is upheld and maintained. So he called it the etheric or life formative forces, form-giving forces. And he described this in the very greatest detail, as if you were reading an anatomy textbook, okay?
What is that?
And this is just the facts, that we can learn this in the same way as we learn about anatomy and physiology in a normal textbook. We can learn about these things. Now that,
Well,
well,
were you just defining what the etheric life force is?
Yeah.
Gail's asking the difference between threefold and fourfold.
well, the difference is now that I've differentiated, I've separated the physical from the etheric, and I've made it into fourfold. So
So
it's,
the etheric is a new fold. The threefold, when you add in the etheric, does that make it fourfold? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's a gradation. It's growing now that we know about the etheric life force. The way I always kind of help people know what the etheric life force is I just rub my hands together and I feel that warmth, and then I kind of feel that bounce right there. And sometimes when you touch someone, you can go towards to touch them, and you can actually feel before you touch them something. That is the etheric life force. You know, when we see all these beautiful chromatic, I think they call chromatic photographs, you can see the aura, the field around people. So it's that field. I'm sure as an artist or as a mover, one gets to sense that perhaps more so with plants or animals. And I think something in our thinking mind has really removed this intuitive capacity to see. As a healer, I definitely can see it where there's wounds or where there's injury. And so that is really coming out of this threefold unit is then when we take a look at these form giving or form forcing forces, that's the etheric, which is another layer, another fold into the system.
It's a new concept, and I can only say practice the openness, the emptying, the wonder, the reverence, and it starts to make sense eventually.
Well, maybe we need to teach it differently so it's not an eventual thing, but yes, it really is. I mean, for me, having gone through this process for the past 13 years and kind of shaping a lot of what I've learned through this with Raoul and other teachers in this realm is it really is an undoing of the way our thinking mind works, and a heck of a surrender to being in this innate animal nature. So yeah. Well, I just want to be aware of time.
I am aware.
Finish your slides.
I think it's going well.
Just check in. Is there anyone else who has a thought, a comment, a question? Thank you, Gail, for that. Before we move on, just because we.
Who else is perplexed and confused? I'd love to hear. It's the way we learn.
And I put some stuff in the notes there.
Fazan has got a
Fazan,
question.
hands up. Let's answer it.
Guys, I am struggling with a lot of it and trying to understand how it's helpful. And so I'm just seeing it as having lots of curiosity. It's something completely new to my way of thinking. And so I'm just listening. I'm going to just take it all in and have faith that it's going somewhere. It'll so it's beginner's mind. It's not sinking in for me. It's not.
Yeah.
I'm struggling to get a hold of it, but part of the process, I'm just going to let it.
I think it's good to look at phenomena that can't be explained scientifically. The fact that a seed contains so much life force in it that it can make an oak tree. There are good explanations and good hypothetical reasons, or that these massive trees can suck water up to the tips, or that, let's say, the wheat fields, the wheat that blows in the wind doesn't break. There's so much life force there. Or a piece of grass, the tip and end of a grass can split open a tarmac. You ask, how is it possible that could exert that kind of pressure against concrete and it bursts through? Or you can see how a seed in a piece of rock, it can split a rock aside. There are thousands of phenomena that are extremely difficult to understand through mechanics and physics, because the element of the life is not taken into account. And the life force brings with it all kinds of other characteristics, which the physical world doesn't have. For example, the physical world functions according to gravity. The etheric world is the very opposite. It pulls it up, it's buoyant. And that's how the blood can stream through an embryo, even though there's no heart. How is that possible? You see, there are hundreds and thousands of phenomena that are not explicable by the forces of, let's say, propulsion and attraction and expansion. All these are physical forces. But the fact is that fluid streams of its own accord against gravity, and that's how it gets up to the top of 20-meter redwoods. And so that's all I want to say. Observe the phenomena out there, and there are many people who've made us conscious of it. People like Schwenk, Sheldrake is very good at it. Rupert Sheldrake, well-known physicist. Go into his work. Morphogenetic fields are his scientific, so these are scientists, these are physicists who've actually open their minds to this other reality and are looking for the phenomena which really are helpful. So Sheldrake, and the other was Laszlo. Laszlo discovered the informational field. So it's the same thing, morphogenetic field, informational field, etheric, life formative field. It's all the same. And when you go into the religions, of course, the whole pranic system, the whole chi system, just, explore that and you'll find your way a little bit more into this other realm. Okay.
I put some notes in there. It's also spelling of Rupert Sheldrake and Ervin Laszlo, if you just want to look at it at some point. But, people like Angie, this is pretty obvious because she studies pulse and Chinese medicine and forces, but somebody who went to formal medical school. So be patient with yourself. You're here and it will come in different ways. And I think the greatest learning here is really the questions, because that prompts Raul to maybe give us more formative things versus.
Yeah, I love the questions.
Items on the spread on the PowerPoint. Moving on to your PowerPoint. Any other questions? Not understanding? Is it hitting a tone with anyone?
Natalie?
Before we move on, Nat, you are
Yeah,
unmuted.
this the reference to Rupert Sheldrake has helped me very much right now. Because I think he wrote the book called The Feeling of Being Stared At. I think that was one of his books. It was years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so he talks about that feeling that we've all experienced, of, say, you're in the car and you're staring at someone and then they turn and look at you, or someone's staring at you and you turn and you feel that they're staring at you. And yet science has never, even though we've all experienced the phenomena, science can't study it. And then in this book, he says all the phenomena. So I wonder, would that be the etheric that hasn't been looked at by science? So like when a baby cries and the mother's in the grocery store, her milk lets down, but she's like miles away.
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly. There you can see the life force is immediately activated by an impression. But we're just at the beginning, because there's a soul field, force field. There is a spiritual force field. So we're looking at the second layer. Physical body, then comes the etheric body, then comes the soul body, and then comes the spirit, or the soul and spirit. At the meantime, I'm not going to confuse you any further. Let's stay with threefold and fourfold. In level 3, we'll go to sevenfold, and there we'll bring in the soul element, because the soul, believe it or not, is also threefold. So that would mean there's 7 layers there. And then the spirit is 12-fold. So let's not go there, but
so moving along in this morphogenic field, right? The mother's milk, the redwoods being able to breathe up top, 20 meters high. Same thing. Rupert Sheldrake's son Merlin just put out a book that was really popular last year called Entangled Life, which is what goes on underground, the way carbon trades minerals and shoots minerals all around the soil. So these are forces that we haven't in our thinking mind really thought through. Jill Peirce uses ancient, I think it's throat singing, Tibetan throat singing, and that resonance, that force field actually moves things. And so we're starting to get into resonance and fields that will begin to make sense, hopefully, with better visuals that make up the whole human. This will persona that you had to want to meet in person when we first. That was your will force. That was your. So these are forces that live in us. But Raul, if you've got more to share, then you should start sharing.
Okay.
Just to honor everybody with that.
Okay. So I'm going to go,
So put the arrow on your screen.
sorry.
There you go. You're on. There's your third reference.
Yeah. The four ethers, I'm not going to really dwell on that. We'll go into this later. The four elements, I think we've got at least a kind of a grasp of the four elements. Again, it's so important in terms of diagnosis and treatment. So we're going to get to know a lot more about these four and just how they manifest themselves. Elements are different to, let's see, I haven't got a slide here, but states of matter. So states of matter is, for example, a solid. So the solids, there are millions of solids, but when you take the earth as a universal principle, you have a hold on all solids. And so the earthly principle is that which is common to all solids. The water principle is common to all things that flow, that connect, that are life-filled in a fluidic form. And there are millions of different possibilities. So by understanding the four elements, you have a generic leverage into so many phenomena. I hope that just also highlights the value of learning about these universal principles, which belong in this other world. We don't have access to it until we drop into that we dimension, and then we have a greater access to it. Okay, this is just an overall slide. I think it's in the handbook, where it just creates the correlation between all these different, there's the states of matter. We'll learn about the temperaments, the ethers.
When do we learn about the temperaments?
I'll go into it in module 5.
So next.
Yeah, you know,
And constitution, how does that play into temperaments, and where's constitution of people?
Well,
People understand Ayurveda, Chinese.
right.
medicine.
Yeah. Again, constitution has so many different meanings that it's hard to know where in general, you can say there's a whole human constitution, and that would incorporate the threefold, fourfold, six, sevenfold, and 9. But we use it quite specifically to the threefoldness, which we'll go into as well.
Your book just outlined.
Head type, chest type, metabolic type is one kind of typing. Fourfoldness would be a melancholic, phlegmatic, sanguine, choleric, or earthy, life, more soul, spirit, and so on. So there are different typings that we can use. And just to mention a great, I don't know why it's not, okay, there it is. The great grandfather of medicine, Hippocrates, he knew about these things. He was very still connected with the etheric world and the elemental world. And he spoke about these 4 humors. We'll go into it again, but basically the black bile was related to the life ether and so on.
What's a humor?
Humors is what he called, humors were in that time the kind of types of fluids, the humors. I think they were regarded. So he calls them the bile humor, or the bile fluid, the phlegm fluid, the blood, and the yellow bile. Now this predates the yeah.
The purpose of this is to see this chart.
Well, just to prelude for future.
Right,
So
okay.
before we end there, we're going to have a small section about the home learning, which has got a lot of these specific tasks in them. Any questions about those correlations?
The ones you just put up there in that table.
Yeah.
based on home learning or based on?
Not
what
yet,
you
we'll go to the
presented?
home learning. I just thought I'd stop there. I don't want to bring too much information. If there's any uncertainties that we need to clear up.
Do you want to put that slide back up there so that people can speak to it, because you're asking questions? And why did the word humor, which is basically bile, evolve to be humor in modern day language? Like, what's
Not
up
me.
with that?
I don't know.
Right,
I'm
so you
not
wanna
sure.
take some questions on I have a question around this fourfold universal correlate. We just talked about how took the three principles, threefold, and then we added in the etheric life force to make it fourfold.
Yeah,
And now we're talking about this being fourfold because we added the etheric life to the normalness that we're made up of mineral, we're made up of fluids, we're made up of gases, right? Warmth.
hmm
So where is the etheric in this? Is it all of it? In this chart right here?
In this fourfold, well, it's composed of these four ethers, and they are, I don't want to go into the details of this, and then there are life processes. There's a whole range of life processes that belong to that field. There's also the whole thinking, the activity of thinking is an etheric activity. It's an etheric quality. So, you know, there are a whole range of, and yeah, there's a whole range of, let's say, within the life body system, there's a whole lot of different categories which we're going to go into. But for this schema here, it's just showing you the relationships between the fourfoldness in the world. It's not connecting, I'm not connecting it to, for example, the life body. I'm saying there's four human sheaths, four ethers, four elements, four temperaments, four states of matter, four states of existence.
So for a tree right now, how does this play in?
Well, there would be earth, water, air, and fire, solid, fluid, gas, warmth in the tree.
Okay.
So you would be able to find the four elements in nature, more in those two categories, and of course the ethers. You'll be able to experience the world life processes as well as the human life processes.
So a sick child comes in here. You look at the physical body, the life body, you check out the psyche,
Mm-hmm.
you see how the child is relating to the higher world. It may be just so in wonderment or very internal, correct?
Right.
And
Yeah.
then you take a look at these other elements. Are
Yeah.
they swollen? Are they grounded? Are they choleric and fiery?
This is good. I mean, in the consultation, these are things one would focus on. One would look then at the quality of the life forces in terms of their differentiation. You would look at the elemental processes going on. You would look at the temperament.
Give an example that when you say the sick child comes in, the
So
elemental.
if a child is droopy and lethargic, you know that his etheric body is weakened. There's no activity there. If the child is a very thin child with particular demeanor, you can quickly see the melancholic in him. You might see that he's very dried. In other words, he's dehydrated and lacking water. He might be tight-chested, asthmatic, which means he's struggling with his air metabolism. So the airy system, and so on. So there are a whole range of qualities that we see that are related to forming a diagnosis based on this fourfold universal principle here. Then we would go to the threefoldness and we would say this child is much more a neurosensory type than a metabolic type. Okay, because
Three folds
uh,
right there.
um,
You don't have it. So the threefold had the metabolic.
yeah. So we can shift between these two systems, and they each and all of them bring us together, and you can relate the one to the other. So a melancholic child, for example, might be very often quite strong neurosensory system with a weak metabolic limb system. And it may have a weakness in the elements. So we would be able to work within the neurosensory system on the water or the air. But I think this is going into far more detail. I just want, maybe good that you brought this up, Dana, to see how we can apply this in our professional work, in our everyday interactions with people, in understanding ourselves. Okay.
So do you want to? I think you wanted to ask questions, but anyone had
If there were
questions?
questions, I'd love them.
Anyone got a question around this highly complex field? Bring them on, it will help me.
So I have a question just around the word death under states of existence.
Yes.
Can you just elaborate on?
Well, yes,
mean-
one doesn't like to hear that word death, does one? But in fact, the physical body without life dies. That's the reality. The moment the etheric body leaves the physical body, which is the moment of death, then we say person's died. So the physical body on its own is a lifeless organism. It's just like there's no life in a rock. Right? The moment you've got life in
Okay.
an object, then you have to have an etheric body there.
Yeah.
And then we can call it life. The moment you have soul or psyche in an animated body, then you have awareness, like in an animal, like in an earthworm even. And that's linked to the nervous system. The nervous system, there has to be a nervous system to have awareness. And then when the spirit engages, as it can only do in a human, that's when you have self-awareness.
Thank you.
Okay.
So spirit brings self-awareness, okay?
Yeah.
Because we're still on the sharing, raise your hand and then I'll see or just blurt out, unmute yourself.
We've got 15 minutes. I think we should go.
All right, what do you need to do? Okay,
Should I stop sharing here?
well, what do you want to do?
Just to give a moment
Do
of,
you want to talk about the home practice?
I just wanted to go on to that quickly. Yeah.
Okay. Do you want to pull something up to share or you want to just discuss about home practice?
And I've got a slide here.
Okay.
Okay. How's it all going with the home learning is the question.
Okay, do you need to have that slide or can we go back into the group? Is there content in the slide or is that just?
No, they are, I've got the the 5 tasks there. I'm sure everyone can recall what was there. There's first of all, the doorways and what one understands about the doorways. Doorways to deep learning. Then there was the 3-fold bodily systems in relation to the 4 gateway awareness activities. And then there was the principle of health in a whole person, whole world medicine. I then had the 4-fold system to explore that section. And finally, there was the biography. So
And this isn't due until we get, the people are still in the process of
Yeah, yeah.
doing this.
But I just
We're
wanted
not
to
scared.
know how that was going, whether there were any questions in regard to that.
Anyone started doing any of the home practice?
Not yet.
Is
I
anyone-
did.
Somebody
I've done
did.
two. I've done two of them so far.
Great.
And how was it? Was it kind of intuitive or was it rough? Should we be editing some of the language?
No. I mean, it makes sense to me. However, I'm not sure what we're supposed to do with the biographical thing. It just feels like a statement. Are we supposed to do something with that?
To go through the, to use that template
Mhm.
again, and to really
Hone in on to 14.
or to expand on the second 7 years, from 7 to 14, just to get a little bit more insight into that time of one's life, just to try and recall it,
Mm.
again, to take the exercise, the awareness process. For example, when I picture my, let's see what happened at 7. Yeah. When I had a few nasty experiences, but let's say my bar mitzvah at 13, I can remember, if I picture myself, I have a picture of myself in the suit, a gray suit with stripes, so unfashionable at that time as well. But it was a carryover because I think my brother outgrew his and I then took on his suit. But I can remember feeling, I drop it down into my feeling, and I can remember feeling like that 13-year-old. I can remember there were feelings of elation, coming to my father and saying, this was the best day of my life. And on the other hand, feeling, not at all the best day of my life. Then I can bring it down into my sensory awareness and feel my body. And suddenly I'm more like that child. And so, I get a sensing of myself as a 13-year-old by dropping it down into my will. And that's how I got to know my biography.
So would you like us to kind of record one of the events and submit it, or just practice some events during the next 2 weeks, or?
Okay, let me see. What does it say in the in the instructions? Because it's described there. I'm going to just
You
go
want me to
back.
put it up or are you able to?
Yes,
put it
can
up?
you? So
So this is for the biography.
Yeah.
Better off.
yeah, thank you. Okay, revisit the U roadmap template that you created in module 1 and focus your recollection on the important events, physical landmarks, and emotional experiences that took place.
So it's a deeper experience of looking back on things that
Okay,
you identified.
this is for your own personal.
Okay.
If you
It's
would
like
like to send something as, that might be useful. Let me tell you something. I wrote a whole book based on this exercise because I was not prepared to just regurgitate intellectual things. And I had to get to know a little bit more about what each stage was. And that was the process I used to drop into the experience. So try that as, just an immersive experience.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
And what I'm struggling to communicate and share is that we can experience learning on a level of intellectuality where we just think about it. We just name things and we say, oh yes, I remember when I was a child, this and this and this. And that's great, nothing wrong with it. But it's actually not full and it's not whole, because you can get so much more out of it if you bring this into experience. And that becomes a deep learning process, so that one not just stays with the thought and the memory, but one goes into a deeper awareness of it on a feeling level, on a sensory level, on a will level. And the picturing is highly, highly valuable. It really is enlivening. By using your mental picturing, it's a God-given gift to higher consciousness. That's all I can say. So that's what the home learning tasks are really there for, to have a kind of continuity of what we can't do in 1.5 days of in-person training, but to try and take some of the basic principles and exercises and continue with them in these two ways. The one is the home tasks, and the other is the WhatsApp videos, that we're trying to just, give reminders, so that each day you might want to practice one of the processes that are presented there.
Raoul,
Yes.
could I just ask, just to clarify, because I think I was a bit confused about this. So the doorways to the deep learning process are the ethical process, attention process, soul, attitudinal, those ones that you meant, those are the doorways.
Well, I think it wasn't that clear. The doorways are actually the passing through into, so it was a description. Doorways are a description of moving towards from the one world of sense perception through into another. So that's the actual doorway. It's a passageway. It's a kind of rites of passage you get through, but the processes are the preparation for that.
Okay, but so we're not talking about the gateways.
No, gateways, we're not talking about the gateways. Gateways.
Okay, because I'm asking for the first task.
Yes.
That asks about the doorways of deeper learning with regards to health and healing.
Yeah. We called this level doorways to the participatory health and healing learning. Doorways to differentiate from structure and foundations. The first was really creating a structure for our deeper penetration, okay? We touched on doorways in level 1, but level 2 goes into the actual doorways. So the doorways, for example, are 3-fold, 4-fold, and many of the universal principles, for example, the contraction and expansion is a doorway. Yeah. Principles of growth and decay are a doorway. The 4 elements are doorways. Each of them will bring us to new insights and new understanding. And so that's, in a sense, what this first thing is, right? 300 words about what you understand about the doorways to deep learning, with special reference to health and healing. So it's about our universal principles that we're starting to get a feeling of, that we worked a little bit on in the first level, how these are relevant for health and healing. And not yet, well, I haven't put a task here for the processes, the preparation processes. I think we'll put that in for module 5. Okay, is that clear, Natalie? The distinction. Fazana's shaking.
Oh, no, sorry, because I handed in the task and I was referring to the gateways in confusion, but now I understand. Yeah.
The gateways are also a doorway. So it's fine.
Okay.
You know, if you
Okay.
want to, but make a distinction. Doorways are a very general term for all the different passageways into higher worlds. They are
Right.
keys. They are unlocking a door through which you can start to see more and more of what's on the other side. That's doorways. And then we differentiate that into a number of different doorways, gateways, threefold, sevenfold, fourfold, 12-fold, elements, and so on. Okay?
Yeah, thank you.
It is really, I'm hoping that Clarissa and Raoul can work together to actually create just a drawing of all of these terminologies that's a drawing, not a like.
But
table of
I'd
contents thing.
I'd love to hear where the confusion is so we can clear it up. What, Fazana, what is your issue? Please. I love your
I think-
questions.
I'm sorry, I'm trying to wade through it. So just listening to Natalie's question, I had a similar confusion. So I was actually going to wait to see what everyone else wrote and then use that as a learning tool to understand. I think the difficulty is there are all these terms, there's gateways and doorways and processes, and I'm kind of getting stuck with all the actual words. I don't think that's been very clear. So hearing the previous question was helpful.
Yeah, it's new territory, and so inevitably there's going to be new terms, and I'm trying to actually create as much uniformity without compromising on the whole thing. You know, doorways sounds like gateways, but how would we give a name to all the gateways? Yeah.
What's the difference?
You know, so terms are very important. It's just we have to learn a language together that we understand what we're talking about. Or you must help me make it clearer. As soon as you understand it, each of us can be, you know, creating a more exact terminology. This is new ground. You must realize this is not Steiner. Steiner gave a whole lot of information, but didn't set it down in a learning curriculum of this kind of, where things unfolding, you know, step by step. And he wasn't that kind of teacher. He just presented stuff and said, work it out, guys.
Well, that's not what we're asking for here.
So to get clarity about something like this issue, what is it going to take? Is it understandable that we have to move our thinking and our awareness from a set piece that we're so accustomed to, which is the sensory world, and we're wanting to go behind that and find out more, that we have to go through a certain kind of passage? Okay, I'm calling that a doorway.
I think
It's a doorway from you know, darkness into light.
it makes great sense, Raoul. I think that my confusion was just that there were all these terms that were perhaps a little unclear, and there was a lot of overlap. So doorway, gateway, process, pathways, just all felt very, so listening has been very useful. Because I think sometimes words get in the way of the meaning. And I think maybe that's part of what's happened.
How would it be to create a glossary of terms?
I think you have, but it hasn't.
You'd like that, you know, where whatever I go through and just make a list of all the terms that we've made, all these new ideas.
There is a
And-
list, but I think if you actually drew it for some of us who are
Right.
visual people, I've read the list. I'm sure they've seen the list and not recalled it, but if it's actually mapped out, which is
Yeah.
what I'd asked you and Clarissa to do a long time
We-
ago.
okay.
So we can visually do that. So that helps the visual learners, not just the list reader learners.
Good.
Yeah, so it's almost like a mind map.
Oh,
It's something that I kind of worked through.
Right.
Just like
maybe.
what are the 3 dimensions? What are the 4 gateways, 4 states of awareness, the awareness process, like centers of awareness. Just kind of jotted them down in a mind map thing because it helps me to
Yeah.
visually try and grasp
Awesome.
everything.
You may have. Raul doesn't think like that. I don't know if you'd be open to sharing that mind map, and then maybe we can get our graphics person Janine to do that, because I've noticed both Raul and Clarissa are just lists type words people, and I can't learn that way. And I keep asking for what you've just done. So I don't know if you'd be open to sharing, even if it's a photograph of that with Raul, so that he, or even if you guys see each other soon, just so you can challenge him more on that drawing, and then maybe I'm not going to entice you to make it into an art piece, but we can get that to Janine so she can do something with it, and then that way, for those of us who are visual learners, that's
And
participation.
one last comment from me. Also, when I read the first assignment about the doorways to deep learning, I thought, was I daydreaming through this? Like, I didn't really, I thought, what did I miss? But I think what works for me is, now that we've kind of fleshed out what you're wanting, I'm like, oh, okay, I get it. I can write about that. So it's like, write 300 words about what you understand about the doorways of deep learning. For example, what do you understand about threefold way, the fourfold way? What have you gleaned in the universal laws? Now, if you flesh it out a little bit more,
Yeah.
then
I will. Yeah, I hear you. I will take more care about instruction for the home learning. Okay.
And guys are like, this is awesome, because I'm constantly butting heads and being told I'm asking for way too much detail and stuff like that. So this is really validating for some of my feedback. And what I'd really invite is to ask these questions. The level 2 group isn't like for chit chat, that was pretty or whatever, but like questions like this. So does anyone figure out like what the homework assignment means or something? Because then that validates to the very heady, brilliant man sitting opposite me that maybe the words he and Clarissa put together doesn't actually fit for all of us, and that we need to translate it more, because I've edited like Raul's books, and they're just way in a thinky mind that isn't really that easy for us lay humans. So please just use that list for the confusions, the queries, because I'm constantly monitoring that, and then I can try and facilitate more clarity.
Beautiful.
Lovely. Well, we're at time. Any other questions or thoughts? And thank you all for letting us go a little bit over. Actually, we're not even at time.
Yeah.
Groovy. So we'll see you in a couple of weekends' time.
Thank you. It'll become clearer and clearer as we go along.
Especially with your questions and feedback.
You know what the most wonderful thing is for me is to start to put the pieces together so that you suddenly create this wonderful kind of jigsaw puzzle mosaic that starts to make sense. That for me has become, I would say, over the years, just a great creative process. So I think this next module will bring a lot more into understanding and reality for us all. So thank you so much for your attention, for your questions, and for your sharings. And yeah, carry on seeing you every day somewhere, or you seeing me at least on the videos. Enjoy them. How are you finding them anyway? Are you enjoying them? Good. We'll keep it
Useful.
going. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks,
Okay,
everyone. Thanks,
good
Raoul.
night.
Thanks, Dana.
Yeah.
Thanks, Doc, for hosting.